Samech Vav, page Kuf Aleph, Yud Dalet Tevet, aber geht nicht hier.
Genau.
Right, so the union of the Gilui Liosid Love at the Tainu Ha'atzmi Sheba'atzmi Sein So. We saw in that itself two Madrigas. We saw there was a Tainu Ha'atzmi She'einu Ba Murgash. But then we saw there was a Tainu, even though it's a Tainu Atzmi, that it will still be shy to a certain Hargosha on the part of the Nivoim. It's called Bo B'Murgash. And therefore we saw Inu Muvan Ma Shayach L'Chalik Madregas B'Pinas Tainu Ha'atzmi. So that we described at great length in the last class how the Tainu Ha'atzmi is in the etzem and mitzad the etzem, and therefore, since even the tainu, and we went on to say that even the tainu atzmi shabo in a form of hargosha is also called tainu atzmi. So therefore, the Rebbe says it's not to be understood that since shneihem heim b'chinas ha'etzem. How can you say that there's two levels in a thing which is mitzad the etzem? And that's well known that the etzem is l'mailami chilukei madregas, and the etzem of any essential essence, the etzem of the neshama, the etzem elikus, all inyone etzem are what we call betachlis ha'pishitus al-pisidas, that they are simple in their very essence. They're not dividable or understandable or in any way possible to divide them into constituent levels. Now, a thing which is an etzem is poshut etzem atzmusei, and poshut means beyond constituent and interdivided levels. And therefore, if we're going to say that that there's going to be a gilui liosid of the tainu inside the etzem, now if that happens again, my boy, you're out. Okay, not only from the shield, but you're out completely. All right. I don't want anything to do with these telephones. Nothing. As far as I'm concerned, that we should make a rule that every time people come into the area of the shiva, they have to give over their telephones. And Be'ez Hashem, I'm thinking very seriously of making such a rule. So the whole day, whenever you have anything to do with the shiva, there's absolutely no shaykhs with telephones. Klal or klal. Only Bereshus Miyuchedes from members of the Anhara. So the Rebbe says that since that's the case, since every etzem is the tachlis ha'pshitus, then how can we possibly say that there's two levels in a inyan which is in the etzem? And we'll see that the tainu ha'atzmi is not a ha'ora from the etzem, but the tainu ha'atzmi is in the etzem and mitzad the etzem. We'll see about that as we go along. And therefore, how is it shy to say two different levels in A'inim, which is essentially the essence itself, the etzem bi'atzmi? Ve'im noima shehein shovim b'madrigosan, maybe we'll say, well, they're really both equal, they just have different names. Lama zeh bo b'murgash v'zeh eina ba b'murgash gam b'taimei Torah u'mitzvahs. They said, if that's the case, that they're both equal, then why is it, well, one we say comes here b'murgash, and the other eina ba b'murgash gam b'taimei ha'torah ha'mitzvahs? And we saw the dinya from taimei ha'torah ha'mitzvahs is in the Torah and in the mitzvahs, the pnimius which is shaykh, that there should be given a reason and a time for the mitzvahs, al pi Torah, and it's well known that the word time has gotten itself two pirushim. When you say there's a time b'dovo, you say the thing has a time, then the word time means in a simple meaning taste. The word time is a word indicating the taste of what they call the palate. Is what reacts to taste, and therefore that's the meaning of time in a simple sense. And time can also mean a reason or an understanding or a view for a certain inyan. So therefore we say that the Torah and mitzvahs have what's called tamim. Tamei are Torah or mitzvahs. Well, that means on the one hand the reason or the inner view or the inner pneumias of Torah why they are, and secondly it means the oineg and the tainug that the Eibishter has in those inyonim, and that comes also by the Adam in the form of ribui oineg v'ribui tainug if he comes to appreciate it. And like we bought the mashal, I think we bought it in the last year, we bought the famous mashal of Rabbi Akiva when he learned to say the Satorah. Or maybe we learned that in English, I'm not sure, I get sometimes. We learned it here, that Rabbi Akiva learned to say the Satorah when Shir Hashirim from Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, and Be'esa Hazman, he was Zolgo Eino of Demois, that his eyes gave forth the Inyan of tears. That was because he was learning the Tamim from the Inyanim, and so the Tamim means the reason Pnimi for the Inyan, but it also means the Tainug, which is Maya in that Inyan Pnimi. That was already a dogma of the Tainug, which comes Bamurga. Raki was aware of that time, and it affected the brain, and therefore it affected the eyes. That's well known. The connection between the brain and the eyes been again to tears. Therefore, the fact that he felt the Indian of tears, that was a sign of the ribuya oineg that he had, and that's called tamei Torah. In other words, when we talk that liyosid, there's going to be a giluy of tamei Torah, then we mean those two inyonim. First of all, we mean there's going to be miskala inyonim in Torah, going to get to mitzvahs, and in Torah itself. Madrigas that have never been grasped before in the understanding of the Adam and of the Mensch Beklau. And then there's going to be a gilui, a skalas of the Tainu Kaviocho, the divine Tainu with the Eibishter had in those inyonim will be shown and revealed in the Koyach HaTainu of the Adam. And therefore, it will be on a very high madrega, the experience of those inyonim ad lanetach, forever, in the man of Liosi, particularly after Tchias HaMeisim. And that's called already the inyan from Tainu Rabor Bamurgash. Of the Tainu She'enu Bor Bamurgash is even higher than that, and that's mamish in the etem, like we saw the expression. We're going to see it now in the coming sentence. Shashui ma'achmim in the essence itself. V'gam ef shaloima da tainu shebetoira eno bebchinas tainu va'achmi bebchinas shashui ma'achmim shareisa b'medrash rabba shalidei atoira oishi atem loichim oishi mamish kaviocho kanal b'diva maslo v'yetzei. The Rebbe said, well, maybe we'll try the other way around. And maybe we'll say that since the Yossi there's going to be a Indian from Tainu Bamurgash in the Indian of Tamei HaTorah Cholapachas, then maybe the Indian from Torah B'Klav is not Tainu Achmi. So therefore he said you can't answer that. On the contrary, we know that the Tainu of Torah in its Madrega HaPnimi is how the Eibishter is misanig and literally spiltach. Adin von Shashuim, the place Kaviocha with the Torah, betoich Atzmei, well, that's the Indian von Atzmas Mamish, and that's the Etzematainu in the Pshitas of the Atzmas, or that's the Yoinagad in Torah mitzad the Etzem of the Eibishter, so that Madrega of Taima Torah is a slightly lower Madrega. But you can't answer it, maybe the whole Indian of Taima Torah and Tainu in Torah is not tied to the Etzem, on the contrary. Yeah, we see that the Tainug Atzmi Aposhut is Dafki Mitzad the Torah. So that means if we're going to say that Taimei Torah also Tainug Atzmi Ba, their Tainug Abo Bamurgash, then you run into the question, how come Mitzad the Etzem that you're dividing things into levels? So how do we know that the Inyan from Torah is Mamishat to the Eibishter's Etzem? Because there's a famous Medrash, a Medrash Rabbah, Shalidei Torah Oisi Atem Loichim, that through the Inyan of Matan Torah, then you took me Mamish, you took the Eibishter Mamish Kamoishahu, Oisi Mamish Kavioho. That means to say me, or referring to my essence, Mamish Kavioho. Canales was brought down, that Midrash was mentioned in the previous Maimar. But everybody's familiar with the fact that the Alter Rebbe mentions that in Tanya, in Perek Mem Zayin, but over there he brings it in the name of the Zoyar. And here we bring it in the name of the Medrash, over there in Pasha Vayetze, the Rebbe brings it in the name of the Medrash Rabbah. And that's what he writes here, Shari Isa B'Medrash Rabbah. So it's two different statements, two different Lashonos, and maybe it's two different ways of understanding it. Al Chapon in the Medrash says that B'Derech Klau, when a person gives an article in a transaction, then there's the seller and the buyer. There's two different entities, and the seller gives the article and the buyer receives it. Not that the seller gives himself together with the article. He gives the article to the Lokeah. That's called the purchaser in the Lashon of the Gemara. It says the Medrash by Matan Torah wasn't like that. By Matan Torah, the Eibster gave the Torah, and he also gave himself together with the Torah. And therefore he says that Machati Lachem Lekach Torah, I gave you a good purchase. V'kaviyochel nimkarti ani be'atzmi itoy. I myself was sold together with the Torah. As Kaviyochel, the Eibster gave the Torah, but he himself, he gave himself together with the purchased article. Here the Alter Rebbe brings it interesting. The Alter Rebbe brings it in Tanya Perek Mem Zayin, or he brings it B'Shem HaZoyah over there. The Alter Rebbe says, that's brought down in the Zoyah, Vayichu li Truma. The Truma means Oishi Mamish. He took me Mamish with the Truma. So the Alter Rebbe says, what's Truma got to do with Torah? And he says that Truma makes Torah Mem. The word Truma makes the word Torah Mem, and that's the Torah Shenitin B'Mem Yomim. That took 40 days to give the Torah, etc. And the Zohar says, Vayichu li kaloima oishi. Even though it's written that you should take for me Truma, it's written you should take me literally with the Truma. As they types the Zohar Kodesh. And Truma is Inyan from Torah. Torah Mem. There's a lot more to be said about that particular statement of the Zohar. But since we bring here from the Medrash Rabbah, the Mitzad Eizitar, we don't mention the Inyan from the Zohar Kodesh. It's not really Nogea. But if anybody wants to look up in Tanya and be a bit ma'amik, to deepen his mind a little bit in the Inyan over there, he can see it in how it's brought down in Tanya. However, the point being that when the Eibishter gave the Torah, he gave his whole self. What that we see that the Inyan from Torah is nogea to the Eibishter. Torah is the Eibishter's essence. And therefore, if we say that there's a tainug in Torah, there must be a tainug mitzad the essence, and that's the shashui ma'achmir. How do we say that even the Tamei Torah also tainug in Torah? And there the Eibishter's tainug in the Torah. So since Torah is from his etzem, then that must also be mitzad the etzem. We said it's a lower madrega, already comes in time. It's already got a certain shaykhus to the makabil. So in that case, how can we be machalik in the level of the etzem from one madrega to another, since it's all mitzad the pshitas of the etzem? That's the shayla. So now he begins with the teretz, but halavai that the teretz should be as understandable as the kasha is. When his poor liyil that was explained above, That means to say in the previous drushim, Dahainu, Acho Inyanu, I'm sorry. Acho Inyanu, but Acho Inyanu is so famous in Chassidus. That's the form of a tirah, it's the beginning of an answer. Dehine nisbur liyil b'dibu amashko hanal, the pnimius abo hu pnimius atik mamish. V'nisbur liyil dahainu b'chinas ayin uma de chochma shu b'chinas ayin de keser mamish. Rak shenimto bein hne tzolim. So here's a famous lashon which occurs in many places in Chassidus, brought down in Lakutei Torah and in the Alter Rebbe Siddur and in the Drushim of the Mittler Rebbe, all over. Some will tell you all the Rebbeim. Very famous lashon, and it's in inverted commas reported to be a quote from the Priyat Chaim of the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, that's from the Arizal, and from the Shara Kavonis also. There's the one on the Arizal didn't write any Sfarim at all, but the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital wrote down in his name, and he wrote down several Sfarim which are called portals, they're called gates, gateways. And the Priyat Chaim is not called a gateway, but it's the gateway that deals with the union of the Kavonis HaTfilos, the different Tfilos, the Tfilos of the Yom HaSachel and Tfilos of Shabbos, v'chulu. And that's called the Priyat Chaim. And then there's another sefer which deals with Kavonis of all sorts of different inyonim in Yiddishkeit, Kavonis of mitzvahs and Kavonis of inyonim shenim also connected with Kavonis HaTfilos. And that's called Shara Kavanah, the portal or the gateway of the Kavanahs. So in those two places, the Chaim Vital writes that he heard from the Rizal that he told him that Pnimius Abba hu Pnimius Atik, that the Pnimius of Chochma, Abba is well known, is the lashon in the Zohar Kodesh for Sfiras HaChochma, that the Pnimius of Abba is the Pnimius of Atik. Now Atik is the Madrega Elyoina in Keser. That we have two Madregas, everybody's already familiar. We have two Madregas in Keser, Pnimius HaKeser, Chitonius HaKeser, or that's in for Atik for Arich. As an Atik is Pnimius HaKeser Mamish. So we say that the Pnimius of Chochma is the Pnimius of Atik, meaning the Pnimius of Keser Mamish. Now the difficulty with that is that we don't find, well, it doesn't appear to be written quite that way, not in the Priyat Chaim and not in the Sharaka Kavonas. It's written over there a slightly different lashon, and here's one of the fascinating cases where we have quotations that Chassidus and our Rebbeim made from certain sources, and they seem to have a different girsa, or a different way of reporting, or a different way of saying it over than what it is in the Mocker in certain cases. And this is one of the striking cases, because it's written over there that in the Priyat Chaim it's written that the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital says he heard from the Arizal that Ha'orim from Chitonius Atik is Yered v'mislabish in Abo, in Chochma, which seems to be almost the opposite of what's written here. Is in the Sharaka, what's also written similar lashon, and over there he writes that he heard it V'loi Yodati Hatam. He said, I don't know what the reason is, I don't know why that should be like that. As they try to V'loi Yodati Hatam. And in another place he writes again that he heard this from the Arizal, and he writes V'loi Havi Noisias Dvoro. He said, I must admit that I didn't understand what he meant, but I'm reporting it over because that's my job, is to say over what the Rebbe had gesagt. He said, Avu Piyu is Lo Yavi Noiset Dvoro. So we see from that L'chol HaDeis it's a rather wondrous and how do you call it, cryptic statement on the part of the Arizal, but our Rebbeim, so there's a whole famous footnote, I mean, mamish, quite a footnote of many lines from the Rebbe Melech Moshiach what the Rebbe brings down, one of the Maimorim of the Frierdiker Rebbe, where this is mentioned, and the Rebbe quotes the sources that are in the Rizal, or in the words of the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, what they seem to be different to what's written in the words of the Rabbein, and the Rebbe is mafalful. How could we maybe be miyashev that nonetheless the Rabbeim are right to quote it that way, even though that's not the way it's written. Kedachi b'kodesh, the Rebbe says many amazing observations al pi Kabbalah, how we could maybe suggest that it's right. Anyway, he says that anyway over here the Rebbe is going to answer in Samech Vav. He brings down our Maimah here for Pash Vayishlach in Samech Vav. And he said anyway the Rebbe answers over here. We'll see as we go along that that's emes that does the from Tainug Shemitzad Ha'etzim, but it's sort of the Tainug Bo B'Muragash. And since it's a Tainug Bo B'Muragash, therefore maybe it can be called the Gabi the emes fanatic, even though it's Mamishatik, but maybe it can be called Chitzanias, in a borrowed term, Chitzanias. And what we're talking in Chochmas for sure, the Pnimis of Chochmas, so therefore the Pnimis of Chochmas, Kilo is Makabel for the Chitzanias, even though, but the Rebbe said that that's, sorry, it's not, completely to be Messiashiv in that way, but it's a possibility, and we'll soon see why. Why do we say that that's difficult to answer it and to really settle the text as it occurs in the Pre-Eitz Chaim with the way it occurs here. Because if you notice, he says that the Pnimis of Abba u Pnimis Atik Mamish. That means to say, when we say Abba, we mean Chochma. And Chochma means Chochma Vatzilas. If we take it in the Seder Oilemes, that means Chochma, how it's only the first of the spheres in the spheres of Elam Atzilas. By the way, I don't allow anything like that in my shul. No bottles, no swigging, no leaning on bottles, no bottles. It appears that the Rebbe is saying that the Pnimius of Chochma, how it is a sphere already in Atzilah. Because l'chora we can answer, and in the previous Maimah and in Beis Bariches, the Rebbe does suggest that, but nonetheless he still goes back to the simple idea that it means ordinary Chochma. Chochma Hatzori, the first sphere in Elam Atzilas, and in the Koyches of the Nefesh Ha'odom, then that's the Koyach HaChochma Shebenefesh. And Pnimis Atik is Yechido, or who knows, Nefesh. So it would appear that we're talking about Chochma, how we understand Chochma. I don't know if anybody here understands Chochma, but anyway. However, we understand Chochma, the Hainu Chochma, how it is in Elam Atzilas, not Chochma Stimora, because Chochma Stimora is what we call Chochma Shebekesa. That's a Chochma Shebe Arich Anpin, and that's a very high, and it's got a connection with Datik. The truth is, it also has a very strong Shaykhis with Datik. And so it would be more comfortable to say that the Kavana Pnimius Abba is referring to the Shurish of Abba, how it is in Arich, in other words, in Chitanius HaKeser, albeit Lamaila from Chochma per se, but not Chochma as it is Chochma and Atzilah, but Chochma Atzori in Keser, of Atik is anyway Keser, so that's only what we call Chochma, how it's in Chitanius HaKeser, of an nonetheless very high Madrega. You do, and that's called Chochma Stir. Yeah, Chochma Stimor. It would be comfortable to say that's the Pshat. In Chochma Stimor, that's very high Madrega, Chochma is in Keser, then there's Meir, anyway, the Inifan Atik, Shaboy. But it doesn't appear that that's a Kavana in Rova famous where it occurs. And so the Rebbeim suggest such a thing, but they don't seem to really remain that that's the emes of Kavana. And in the last Maimah, Pasha Vayetze, even though the Rebbe suggests that possibility of it being Chochma how it is in Arich, he nonetheless says that the Kavana Pshuta of that statement, Pnimis Abu, Pnimis Atik, means Chochma al Derech HaRoga, Chochma how it is already, Chochma in Atzilas, or Chochma Shebenefesh, Ha'odom. In other words, it's Chochma HaGluya, Chochma has become a sphere in Atzilas. Nonetheless, we say that the Pnimius of Chochma is Pnimius Atik, and then he puts in the word Mamish. In other words, he doesn't tend to in any way develop the statement in a way that you might make it more comfortable with the Lashon how it occurs in the Sfarim from the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital. And he goes on to say, even more than that, what does that mean? Bechinas ayin uma de chochma, shu bechinas ayin de keser mamich, rak shenimtzo bein hanertzolim. So he said that we explained before that what does that mean? That means the ayin uma de chochma, that's the union of ayin de keser, rak shenimtzo bein hanertzolim. So what does he mean with that? It's well known, the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya Perek Gimel, and that's the Ikar statement, but over the Alter brings it also in Perek Yutes, in Tanya, the famous statement that the word Chacham is made up of two words, Koyach, Ma. And the word Koyach, that means a specific isgalus in a limited and definitive oifen of revelation. That's what a koyach is. For example, we say that we talk about the union of koyach ha-tenua in the nefesh. So the union of the nefesh can give forth all sorts of movements. It's able to cause the body to move in all sorts of different ways. But the word koyach ha-tenua means the way that the tenua comes and reveals itself in specific movements. And wherever we use the word koyach, then we mean something that's come in a specific limited expression with its own characteristics that differentiate it from something else. And therefore we talk about in the famous three levels in the Gilui HaNefesh. We talk about Oyer, V'chayis, V'choyach. And we said there's a union of an Oyer, what that's a Gilui of the Nefesh, L'mayla mi'akelim, L'mayla the limbs of the body altogether, for any specific revelations in the powers of the limbs of the body. And then we talk about Chayis, what that's like a middle point. But that's a revelation of a to keep the body, as it were, alive, and to give it the power to express itself in the world. And then there's koyach, how that divides itself into all sorts of very specific inyanim, that you have koyach haksiva, koyach hariyah, koyach, all sorts of different limited abilities, but they express themselves in limited and defined oifanim and material in the world around the order. So therefore, in that regard, Chochmah is also a koyach. Chochmah is one of the ways that the mensch expresses himself in form of a limited, defined inyan. That's the ability of the nefesh to grasp and to understand and begin to understand the inyan of reasoning and seichel. Where does that come from? That comes from higher inyanim in the nefesh. A mensch has got an ability to begin to understand. And that's what we call chokhmah, that he has this, what we call a nakuda, and then after it develops itself. Well, that's called a koyach. Bina is also a koyach. But bina is a lower koyach, where the mensch brings that into details, and it becomes a whole involvement in the life of the mensch. Ma'ashenkin chokhmah, it's still a very high, somewhat almost withdrawn inyan of a bright light that shines into his mind, but he doesn't quite know exactly all he's got yet. And then there's other koyis, what they assist him to bring it down and to identify it with his daily life, I feel, and that becomes a living thing in his life, and that's other koyches. If you have koyach habina, and you have koyach hadas, and you have the midas, but they're also koyches. And eventually you have the inyan of the gimel of ushi, machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh. Well, to a certain extent they're also koyches, even though they're not mamish koyches. Edafa, the inyan from chokhmah is a koyach. It's one of the specific revelations of the nefesh. It's called a koyach because it's got to do with kelim. And the inyan from kelim is that each koyach has got its vessel through which it expresses itself. And therefore, going on that in the brain, you've got three different levels in the brain, three different formations in the brain would help the mensch to produce his understanding and his seichel. And the first one of them is a cavity of the brain which is shayach to chokhmah. And that's the kli of chokhmah. That's the kli through which this Indian, a kli is a specific thing, as I said before, it's a specific limited entity which limits the essential light of the nefesh and brings it into that type of revelation. That's called a koyach. So in that regard, chokhmah is also a koyach. But the difference with chokhmah is that it's called koyach ma. In other words, that it's like two things that defy one on the other. On the other hand, it's a koyach, like we said, and it's got a kli, and that's what a koyach does. Koyach comes to a vessel and a kli. There was a limited, specific Indian in its own right. And here, on the other hand, is what we call ma. What ma is the question what. The word ma aims upwards at the unknown. You only say ma when you don't know anything. And even more than that, you can say ma when you don't believe that you are anything. And that's what we see that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron, when they were crowded on by this crowd asking for water and so on. So then Moshe Aaron said to all the people, "V'nachnu ma shesolinu aleinu." We are nothing that you should complain against us. Ve'ein tlunoschem ela ela. Shem, you're not complaining against us. You're only complaining against the Eibishter. That happens to be maybe a Musa Haskell, a very profound Musa drasha for everybody to realize. Bishop Ben said, if you complain, you're not really complaining to anybody, but you're complaining to the Eibishter. But however, whatever, I suppose it's only human that sometimes people complain. However, we see that Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron said, "V'nachnu ma." What are we? Meaning that we are not anything. In other words, we are nothing. We just were sent here by Hashem, and we're just representatives of the Eibishter. And therefore, if you complain, you're complaining against the Eibishter. We are nothing. There's nothing to complain to us, because we're just doing only what Hashem sent us to do, and only saying exactly what the Eibishter said to say. Edify. We see that the word ma indicates not just what, not just a question which is aiming upwards, but it indicates also an Indian beetle in the very self. In other words, what we call a beetle pnimi, or it's called a beetle atzmi. In other words, a beetle of the self, a beetle of the etem, how do you call it in English, self-nullification. And if that's too posh for anybody, then just take it in more simple terms and you'll get the point. That's in for ma. So we see that chokhmah is koyach ma. Chokhmah is a power in the soul. It's a specific power, and it can eventually come down into lower powers, but there's a higher and pneumius in chokhmah, what it is beyond the whole idea of koyach, it's beyond the whole idea of specificality, it's beyond the whole idea of being in the self, but it's the idea of being out of the self and batel to what you call the etem, either to the etem of the Eibishter or through the medium of the nefesh, which is anyway batel to the Eibishter. Edify, that's the union of chokhmah. So we see that chokhmah is like two antithetical, or two opposites, one against the other. On the one hand, it's a koyach, and yet on the other hand, there's a pneumius in chokhmah, which is a heap of mikoyach, and on the contrary, it's even from ma, it's even beetle be'eter. So the emphasis is that a beetle of that nature would have been appropriate for something much higher. A beetle of just absolute nothing and not being any entity at all would apply to something much elevated and much higher than the union of chokhmah. So the emphasis is henochanami, and that's what the Rizal said. He said the pneumius of Abba, which is ma, is chokhmah. Is keser. And what is keser? Keser is the Ein Sof. Keser is the crown above all the spheres, but that's the Eibishter, how he is Ein Sof. And that's expressed by the word Ma. Therefore, the Rebbe said that the word Ma is the unit of Ayin. The word Ayin means nullification. You heard it good? The naught, or the nothing. However, it's very interesting that the word Ayin is always the negation of something. If you want to say absolute naught right from the beginning, then you say Ephes. But Ephes means absolute echlatius of the nothingness. But when you say ayin, then you assume there was something, but then you say it's not that. In other words, it's heipach mimasha chashavta in a way. It's not the way you thought. And therefore, somebody says to you, if you got any money or something, he says, kesef ayin. That's how you can say in proper Hebrew. He said, there's no money. Kesef ayin or ain kesef. Yeah. So what did he do? He said money, and you say ain, ayin. There's no kesef. In other words, he suggested there might be something, and you shoilel it. You negate. You say, no, that's not there. So this union from Ma in Chokhmah is like going up into a level of experience where you say, no, there's really nothing. In other words, at Chokhmah, albeit a power, and it's a koyach, and it's lower level, but there's a pneumius inside it which goes up and takes you into a level where you say, and you're ready and you're able to say, And that's what Taryn said us that's got to do with the concept of Kabbalah Seir. You ever heard of Kabbalah Seir? Well, if you've been in Tomchet Shmim or even Ot Shmim, not Ot Shmim, but Tomchet Shmim, which is Ot Shmim is part of, and you haven't heard of Kabbalah Seir, then you need to be shackled out a little bit. Because Kabbalah Seir, means that you take on yourself the yoke of heaven. And you just don't know of anything, you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, you just take on yourself the yoke. So that's ayin of Chokhmah. In other words, that's this ability to go out of the self altogether and just say, well, whatever the Eivshter will say, that is what goes, because that's the union of ayin, and that's the union of keser. What is keser? Keser is a crown. Who wears a crown? The Emerson Bala. The Emerson King, the one who rules over everything, he wears a crown. So the union of an ayin is where you go up and you say to him, look, you're the king, anything you say, anything. I don't say anything, I don't know of anything. All I want to know is what you say and about you, if possible. But I myself don't have anything for myself. And that's the union of Chokhmah. So that's like two almost opposites. And yet, nonetheless, we make them one word and we say koyach ma, koyach, and they both become Chokhmah. It's a simon that it's got to work in two ways. You've got to draw the iron down into your koyach, and whenever you're thinking, whenever you're working things out, you have to do it with absolute bittul to the Eivishter's kavanah. On the other hand, you also want to go upwards. You want to go out from understanding altogether, and want to go up into the absolute bittul of ayin, bittul altogether to the union of lamayla mi ashviras lagamri, with that union from kesem. So therefore, that's what we see. So to ask so the question, what's it doing there in the middle of Chokhmah, this union of ayin? So that's basically what the Arizal is trying to tell it. The Arizal is trying to say that what you got in the union of Chokhmah, in the middle of Chokhmah, you got this ayin. It doesn't seem to make sense, because Chokhmah is understanding. After all, Chokhmah is the way the Mensch begins to bring things down into his way of understanding. Koyach, it's a limited ability to already deal with things. What's that doing there in the middle of Chokhmah? Ayin, absolute naught. Ma, the Ma, which is indicative of the union of ayin, bittul, that's a matona, that's a mean giving as a. This is on the pneumius abba. Who pneumius abba means? How did that happen? I'm sorry, pneumius abba. Who pneumius atik? How did that happen? Because atik put himself down there, and nobody knows how it happened, and nobody knows how it works. But therefore, there's all sorts of different. Still says pneumius abba, in the actual works of the Bein Chaim tell us it's a bit different. Somebody understands that this was a and therefore Bein Chaim Vital himself says, I didn't understand what he meant. All I know is Kach ze. Na, so steht da. And in either in the Pri Chaim or the Shara Chavonis, it's two different lashonim. In one place he says, "V'lavi noises devorov." So I didn't understand what he meant, but that's what he said. And then another place he writes, "V'lo yadati hatam." I don't know what the reason is of kachaseh. In other words, that the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital was being very honest, and he understood everything. He knew everything about all the different levels, and he said that doesn't make any sense. Inside, a specific koyach or a koyach. It's one of the specific revelations of Nefesh that there should be the senior from ayin, the keser, atik, mamish. So I don't know what that is of the Rebbe Otasegizot and the Rizal. He said, Ados Sedes. So that's what we're going to deal with now, this whole idea of Pneumius Ave, who Pneumius Atik. And you should realize that this is one of the basic keynotes to understand the whole Chassidus Chabad. Because the whole Chassidus Chabad is called Chochmah, Bina, Das. It begins with Chochmah. And why didn't the Alter Rebbe, why didn't he call it Atik? He could have called the whole Chassidus Atik. He could have called it Keser. Or he could have, who knows what, he could have called a bomber. It blows all your understanding, it blows you to who knows what. Why did he call it Chochmah Bina Das? What was it? I can mislead people. People think, the whole thing of Chabad, it's big philosophies and Chochmahs, Seichels and all that. It's got koyach and time for all that. It's mine, koyach for Zoch in Yonim. Nah, the fact that the Alter Rebbe said all begins with Chochmah, he did a very big kunst, because the whole union from Chochmah, hidden in Chochmah, is the union from the secret of the Eibishter himself, Pneumius Atik. The whole, the Eibishter wants you to be a union of understanding and beyond understanding together. You got to unite them together. You got to go as high as you can in the revealed aspect of Chochmah, but then you got to bang into and collide with the union from Lamaila Chochmah, and you got to know that that's the Ikar, and that's got to come down into everything you understand, and then you've got to go back up there, and then you just get lost completely in Lamaila Chochmah. But as they say, you know what you are doing because you already learned about it in Chochmah. So in other words, that even though you're completely ois, as they say, in inverted commas, crackers, you're completely out beyond all limitations. But you know what you're doing. It's had to do, and it's got a shaykhus teaching from Chochmah. But they say there's a very famous quip. I once heard it from Rav Nocham, Or Shalom. He said there was once an ultra chassid. He came from Ruslan. He actually lived in Eretz. I've forgotten his name. And he lived in Eretz prior to his passing. And so he said that l'chera, it's a big difficulty. What are you supposed to be in life? If you're supposed to be clever, as clever is not good. The Nefesh Abamis and the Yetzer Hara, they're called the clever ones. The clever. And the Rebbe used to refer to the Yetzer Hara as der Kluginka, the famous lesson of the Rebbe, the clever one. So to be clever is not good. If you're clever, you fall into the hands of the Nefesh Haba. So what's the Yetzer? Then to be a fool, to be the opposite of clever. So nobody wants to be a fool, And on the contrary, the Rebbe Rashab said you're allowed to be a fool. It's forbidden, Famous seal from the Rebbe Rashab. But he said it's even a Isa D'Oraisa to be a fool. I see nobody got the joke. Anyway, you're not allowed to be a fool. So this closets into what he's supposed to do. You can't be a fool, and you can't be a clever one. You can't be what he's supposed to do. So he said the emphasis is you have to be a fool. He said you have to be a fool. He said over tabisel is seichel. He said you have to be able to use it. In other words, you have to be meshugah, but you got to use a little bit of seichel. That's another way, in a very vernacular way. That's what this whole idea is. That you got to have chokhmah. Chokhmah's a koyach, but in chokhmah gufi you got to go into ma, and you got to just lose. And what is ma? Ma is ayin. What is ayin? Ayin is from bittul mamish legamre to the ayin. Say So ultimately, that's what you got to be. But you got to remember that you came from Chochmah, and that's what that Chassid said. You got to be absolutely out, but you got to. It's all got to be connected with the universe. From Seichel, it's got to go some way through and have a shaykhs to the universe from Seichel. Therefore, you wanted to say, that's it. The universe. You should realize that many of the Seides and the secrets of Chassidus are hidden in that famous expression Pnimis Abahu Pnimis Atik Mami. When he spoor the Hainu B'chinas Ayin Uma de Chochma. You notice he connects them together. Ayin Uma. Shehu B'chinas Ayin de Keser Mamish. That's Mamish, the Ayin of Keser. Rak Shenimtza Bein Haneh Cholim. It's found amongst the Sfirat. Nea Chalim is from the word Sphiris, meaning the Achilas. The word Achilas means the godly world of emanation. Nea Chalim are those things which are brought forth into Achilas. In other words, the Spirit. Ein de Keser Mamish, Rak Shenimtza Bein Haneh Chalim, V'lachein, Loi Nitan Lahenes Boy. Therefore, you're not allowed to have any hanoah from it whatsoever. You can't have any benefit from it. Lefishu, P'chinas Ayin de Pnimis HaKeser. Well, that's the ayin of Mamish Pnimis HaKeser itself. The Leis Machshava Tfisa Bei Klau. That abbreviation makes the words Leis Machshava Tfisa Bei Klau. Well, that's what the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya at the beginning of Perek Hay. That ain't safe, the Eibishter, how he is. Mamish ain't safe, Leis Machshava Tfisa Bei Klau. No Machshava can possibly grasp him at all. He has no ability to grasp him whatsoever. Says the Rebbe, he makes it even more profound and mystifying. He says that Ma Ayin de Keser came there from Keser, like we said, it was placed there by Pnimis HaKeser, but he said that's Mamish Pnimis HaKeser itself. It's not just that Pnimis HaKeser placed some sort of a trace of itself over there in the union from Ayin. No, that's Mamish Pnimis HaKeser itself. In other words, when you say Ayin and Ma, you're talking about Pnimis HaKeser, so it makes it even greater. We've got this Kilu, two opposites. You got a koyach, which is a gilui of the spirits, and in that gufa you got this union from completely beyond altogether the union of Keser. What we said was the Ein Seif, how he is Mamish Lamaila Mikoha spirits, even from Pshitas or Ein Seif in his very self. Leis Machshava Tefisa Bei Klau, and yet nonetheless we say that that's to be found in this Ma of Chochmah. The Rebbe said, that it's not just a ha'ora, but Pnimius Abba, who Pnimius Atik, that Pnimius of Chochmah, or that is Pnimius Atik Mamish. Not that this is just some sort of trace comes down there, but that's it. How do they say? That to use the old expression, the real McCoy, that's it, itself Mamish. Edifar, says the Rebbe, being that the case, then v'lochein lo nitan lahenes boy, and therefore you can't have any hanoah, you can't have any benefit from that. Lo nitan lahenes boy. And I will soon see about that in a second. Lafishu b'chinas ayin de pnimius hakeser. That's mamish atik is pnimius hakeser, that we pointed out earlier. Leis machshava tfisa bei, just like in the Eibishter, mamish biatzmai, you can't understand him, and there's no grasp, no shaykh whatsoever, any form of understanding, or even approximate understanding. That's the union from Pnimis HaKeser. That is found in Pnimis Abba Mamish. That's what the Eibishter takes himself from here, plants himself over in here. And therefore, the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital said, doesn't understand it, doesn't know what's going on. That's the basis for ties. Afila, like it's written in the Kisvei Arizal, that as it comes down and into the Pnimis, so yes, it's a different lashon. Even on that, he says, Lo Yahavi Noisi. How much more so the way Tzilus touches it? Pnimis Abba, who Pnimis Atik, Mamish. So there was a Rebbe, in another place in Siddur, it's asked Shaila, what does it mean that it's not given to have any benefit from it? You can't possibly only have any hanoah. If you can't have any hanoah from it, then what's the point of it? Why was it put there in the first place? So this expression, Leinitan lehenes boi, that's a lashon based on a certain lashon that occurs in the Gemara. But the Gemara says that mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu. You're familiar with the famous cloud. The mitzvahs were not given to have any benefit from them. In other words, the mitzvahs are kiyim gezeiros hamelech al avodo. This is the Gemara. The mitzvahs are just decrees what the Eivishter gave us that we have to do. We're just his avodim, and he didn't give us a mitzvah that we should gain any benefit, any monetary benefit from doing mitzvah. They have to do the mitzvah purely because of what it is, but you're not supposed to look for or even expect any form of benefit which might come out of a mitzvah. So the Gemara says that, but again, to certain shilas, sometimes you might say, well, the guy did a mitzvah and then he got a certain benefit from it. Maybe that's going to affect a certain other situation. So the Gemara says, no, we can't say that, and we can't allow that to be the case, because mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu. A mensch can't do a mitzvah and then have an income from having done the mitzvah. Once he's done the mitzvah, then he's got to know that he was only Makayim, Rotzen, Havaya, Bilvat. And that's a big cloud. The mitzvah slav lehenes nitno. What that means, that the inif and the Rotzen of the Eibishter is a gezeira of the Melech. It's how they call it, the decree of the king. And you just have to do the decree of the king. You don't know what he wants with it. It's not your Indian. And like the famous spear in Chassidus, when you get to Rosh Hashanah, when you take on this oath, the famous Indian for Kabbalah Sale, and every Rosh Hashanah, it's brought down in Chassidus that you have to do that, like the soldier, accepts his orders and he doesn't know what the heck they're all about. All he knows is that he's got to move forward and do it, and just keep moving and keep going and doing. That's the Indian of a soldier. No, it's brought down. The Reb Mara, famous Sichos, he went etc. Brought down in many places. So that's the Indian of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs lav lehenes nitno. A very similar expression. The Rebbe says that this whole Indian, that the pnimius of Keser is to be found in pnimius Abba, even though Abba is one of the koiches, it's one of the abilities of the nefesh to appreciate. You might have thought, well, maybe we go out and we have a shayla. So he said, it's not lav lehenes. It's not for you to have any benefit from it. So what does that mean? I mean, who's going to have any benefit? Well, it was taich, meaning in Pashtus that one of the biggest benefits we have is that we understand things with the powers of our souls. We appreciate things. We get to know, to feel, to appreciate through seichel, through av, and through yira, and so we become connected and makusha to the Ein Sof. So the Rebbe said, no, it wasn't given there, even though it's in the koyach which is called chokmah, it wasn't given there that you should have any hanoah from it. If you shouldn't have any hanoah from it, means you can't ever really understand it. What's it doing there? Abba is chokmah. Chokmah also is a form of appreciation, albeit a very delicate form of appreciation. And you say, oh yeah, this Indian from Pnimis HaKesed is really there, but it's not for your, how do you call it, it's not for public, what do you call it, for public use. How do you use the expression? It's not for, how do you call it, what's the expression when they put, locked away? It's not for
consumption.
Huh?
Public consumption.
Yeah, not for consumption. Not for consumption. Can't use it. So the Rebbe said, you can't use it. What's it doing there in the sphere of Chochmah? All of a sudden, Atzma say planted himself over there, and you say, Leis Machshava Tefisa Bay Cloud. What's the point of it? What's it doing there? You're not going to get there anyway. You're not going to be able to grasp it. You're not going to have any shaykhs to it. Mitzad your abilities of your nefesh to understand and to appreciate. What was the point of it? So that's what the Rebbe says now. But he sort of leaves you a little bit in the lurch, and then we're going to explain the whole thing. He said, it's explained in another place. That you can't have any benefit or hanoah by way of the koiches and the nefesh and the understanding from it. What is it? What is the benefit? Toilas means what is the how do you call it, the advantage and the purpose of the fact that the Eibush should put it down amongst the ne'atzalim, amongst the spheres, amongst the things which have been brought about. If it comes from Ein Seif Mamish, it comes from Pnimis V'atzmis HaKeser, then what's it doing down there amongst the ne'atzalim? So you might say, well, he wanted to give us a tremendous gift that some way or another we should be able to make that. I mean, you said no, you can't make it. It's not meant to be made, as it were, by the courtesy of understanding. What did he put it over there? For what is it doing? What's the whole idea from Pnimis Abu, Pnimis Abu? What do we have from it? Yeah, so it's wonderful. That's Kesser, and Leis Machshava, Tvisabay, with all the Dinyonim, but if we don't have anything, what's it doing there? Because it nimtza, it's found. In other words, it doesn't really belong over there. And that's one of the biurim that's written in Iyov. That's written V'achokma miyayin timotzei. That the whole Metzias of Chokma timotzei is from the Ayim, from the Indian of Kesar. I say it's not now. So, Chassidus says an amazing biur. Why did the pasuk say Chokma miyayin timotzei? But the word timotzei is from the word to be found. And so the word found means a found article. You know what's called a matzia in the Gemara. There's a whole chapter in the Gemara. Eilu matzias. You know what a matzia is? Huh? A found article. So nowadays they call cheap things, they call matzias. You've been slightly misled by the up-to-date usage of these expressions. But the opposite word matzia means you walk along and you find something. It's there. You don't know where it came from, you don't know how it got there, but you jump on it because you'd like to be the one who would have it. That's called a matzia. But if a chokhmah me'ayin timotzei, that means that it's nimtzo beina netzarim. It's just there like a found thing. It doesn't really belong there. We don't really know where it came from because we don't understand Pnimis HaKeser. But nonetheless, it's kilo, the Pnimis HaKeser itself planted itself over there. But that's called Nimtzo Bein HaNetzalim. It's just found there. It doesn't really fit. I mean, fit, for sure it doesn't fit. So the Rebbe said, if it doesn't fit, and nobody has any ability anyway to grasp it, and nobody's allowed to even grasp it, then what's the purpose? Why did the Eibush make this unbelievable Indian of planting the Indian of Etzem Keser Nimtza Beina Netzalim? What is he doing? What is the purpose of it? What's the Indian with it? So the Rebbe said today, to understand that we have to understand the bechinas ha'ayin kemo shehu bechinas pnimis ha'keser mamish harei eino bechinas yediya v'asoga klal ve'eino begeder tfisa klal. So the Rebbe said, let's take what we just said. We said pnimis ha'keser. It was a pnimis ha'keser, took it over and planted itself inside Chokhmah Hagruya. So he said, for a moment, what is pnimis ha'keser? Let's examine what pnimis ha'keser is. So he says it's well known that the Indian from Pnimis HaKeser ain't no bechinas yediya v'asoga klal. There's no way that anybody could possibly even know about that, how much more so understand. Yediya means just to have some knowledge that there is such a thing. Hasoga means to grasp it. Ve'ena begeder tfisa klal. It's not in the ability of grasp. But tfisa means already grasp. That's what the Alter Rebbe begins Perek Hey with. Lahavin b'teisa v'spia. Russian Eliyahu, Leis Machshava Tfisa Bay. What's the word Tfisa? The Alter Rebbe's got a whole beer over there. In other words, that it's not in the whole Geder, it's not in the whole, how do you call it, definitional status Geder means like a fence. Geder means the whole definitional status of the grasp of the mind. The word tfisa is like a general, it's pretty mean the ability to reach something and ultimately to have some knowledge about it or to form some connection with it is called tfisa. So he said the whole infant kesser is beyond the whole concept of kesser, of tfisa, altogether. That's what it's called. The pnimis of kesser is called, in the Alter of a city, brings it down and it's down all over the place. B'Shem Hazeh HaKodesh, it's called Reisha Delo Ish Yada. Reisha Delo Ish Yada. Literally the head that is not to be known. Reisha Delo Ish Yada. So the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur in Baruch She'omah, the Alter Rebbe said when you say Baruch She'omah, then that's what you're referring to. If it might help you with your Kavanah Satfila a bit, stay to it. That's Reisha Deloi Ish Yada. So the Alter Rebbe brings over there that it's written in the Zohar Kodesh, or in a quote from the Zohar Kodesh from the Talmud, the Arizal, one way or another, it's written there that Reisha Deloi Ish Yada means the head which is not known. Loi Ish Yada means that it's not known. V'lo Yoda, and it doesn't know. So Loi Ish Yada, it's not known to those who are below it. Not known. What do you mean by that? V'lo Yoda doesn't know. So the answer to that one is that Reisha Deloi Ish Yada is so botil and so kilo niklal in the very essence of Hashem that it doesn't know that it's anything. It doesn't even know about its own self. It has no feeling or knowledge that it is a thing. Therefore, it can't be known to all other levels. It doesn't feel its own self. It doesn't even know about its own self. So the Alter Rebbe brings it down in the Drush Yom Kippurim, in Likutei Torah, and he brings over there that when the Kohen Gadol went to the Yom Kippurim, into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippurim, then he was really into this level of Reisha Deloi Ish Yada, and he said that that's a Zah Madrega, what it's not known, but it doesn't know about its own self, Biklal, and he said it's so bottled and they ain't safe that it's killer, not an entity. It doesn't know what it is. So once again, I told the Shara, if it doesn't know, then what are we supposed to know? And what's the point of it? What's the whole union of making such a union? If so, it doesn't know about itself, and nobody knows about it. So for now we hear that all other behemoths, no matter what you're talking about, they all have a certain awareness of their own self. In other words, that there's a hidden piece of like information or chiddush in that whole union, that all levels, to a certain extent, are aware that they're levels. I mean, it could be they're completely and utterly, bottled in Hashem, and they know only of Hashem, and they don't have any other, like all the spheres in Atzilus. They're all Elokus Mamish. But we have to say that they feel that there's something about what they are aware of their own ashpah, they're aware of what they're doing, or they're aware of something. There must be, otherwise you can't really call it an entity. You're not even aware of it so clearly. What is it? I mean, it's below. And the whole finish with this Reisha Deloi Ish Yada is that it's not known, but it also doesn't know itself. It's completely and utterly, as you might say, and that's what he teaches, to lo yoda v'lo ish yada. Here it puts it the other way around. First of all, it doesn't know, and it's not known. Pirish to lo ish yada klal. And then he goes over to the lo ish yada for a moment. He said, it's not to be known at all. Ke'inyan b'chinas hastimus shemitadatzmei. He said that's called what we call blockage, mitzaditon, or inability to be known. Stimus, literally blockage, mitzad its own self, which was explained earlier. V'nikra stimu de kol stimin. You must be careful with these abbreviations because otherwise you'll get them all mixed up. Stimu de kol stimin, steamer of the stimin. In other words, in all the things which are not to be revealed, this is the chief one. This is the steamer of all the stimin. All the things which are not revealed, this is the not revealed one of all of them. V'ayinu mishum shelo yoda. Oh, here he gives a question. Why is it that this is the steamer to call stimin? It's in all levels which are not easy to grasp. It is the hidden one of all hidden ones. He said because it doesn't even know about itself. It's so bottled it doesn't even have any own existence of its own. That's why at B'derech Mamela it is Lo Yisya. That's an amazing diuk. The Rebbe said, if you could imagine a thing which is so bottled, doesn't even know of its own self, doesn't even know of its own self. It doesn't feel itself. I mean, none of them feel themselves, but they're aware somehow or another what they are, but they don't feel themselves. Or he doesn't even aware, that Mamela Hu Lo Yisya, something like that is not known to other peoples, or how to call it, other madrigas or other levels. They can't grasp something. And he said, that's Mamela, come to you, the Stoli Oba. Oh, that's dependent one end there. In other words, why is it Loi Isyada? Because it's Loi Yoda. Now, we're going to see that that's a madriga which finds itself in Pnimis Abba. At their level, from Reisha to Loi Isyada, Mamish Pnimis Akesa, that's hidden inside Pnimis Abba, meaning from Pnimis HaChochma. So, the Shaila, if it's not to be known not to be Nyanamimenu, what's the purpose of it? And so of course we have to say there must be some meaning in it there, or some way to reach it, otherwise why would you put it there? So I was going to suggest that there is a way that you can, as it were, make some sort of a kesher with it. And that we're going to see is connected with this concept of Kabbalah Seo. And for the time being, we say that we don't know, we don't know what's going on here, but we're beginning to get some sort of a feeling, and we'll see as we go along with future episodes how you make a kesher with this particular level. Good. Okay, so have a good evening, and tomorrow, tomorrow evening or tomorrow after a certain time is what we call Nittel.